Hey everybody, welcome back. My name is Alex. This is another Divi theme tutorial. Today we're going to talk about creating dual button rows. We've got some buttons side by side here. I know a lot of people use third-party plugins that have a dual button module. A lot of the ones that I've tried are a little buggy or a little more complex than I think than they need to be for something like this. And so a lot of times I find myself just building these natively here in Divi when I need two buttons side by side for like hero sections and call to action sections. And so here's how to do this natively in Divi. So we're going to add a row, and then I'm going to add a button to this first column. What I like to do for these is go into the Design tab, the Alignment toggle, and then Center Align. And then go into the Advanced tab, Custom CSS, Module Elements, and set these to Width 100%. And actually, I'm going to give this more of a bright background color just so it stands out. It's not going to be pretty, but you'll be able to see it. And I'll copy this and put this in the other row. Alright, now let's change our row settings. I'm going to come into the row settings, Design, the Sizing toggle. I like to set my gutter width to 2, just to bring these buttons a little closer together. If we set it to 1, they'd be touching, and I don't necessarily like that. So I like a little bit of padding there. For the width, we are going to enable the responsive options, and on desktop we're going to leave it at 80%. On tablet, however, we are going to set it to 100%, and I'll show you why in a minute. Alright, and then we'll go back to desktop here. And then for our max width, I'm not going to enable responsive options. I'm going to set it to, let's say, 700. You can play around with this number based on however big you need them to be. But I find 700, somewhere around there, between 5 and 700 pixels is pretty good. Now the reason I set this here as the max width and not the overall width, I want the overall width to be a bit flexible based on the screen size. This is just saying that, hey, no matter what screen size, I don't want this row to be over 700 pixels. And so most of the time, that's really only going to affect your desktop view and then tablets in portrait and maybe some larger tablets. But this is a good one to be static for any screen size, so we don't need to enable the responsive options here. Now let's go ahead and take a look at this real quick on the responsive options and see what happens. So when we go to desktop, you'll see that we've got some spacing here on the side, which is good, looks good. If I come into mobile view, however, they're touching the edges, and I don't necessarily want them right up against the edge of the screen. I like to have a little bit of spacing. So what we'll do is we'll open up our row settings again. We'll go into Design, Spacing, and we're going to add a little padding, and we're going to do it in the responsive options. And so what I'm going to do is actually go to the tablet view, and I'm going to set these to 10 vertical width. It doesn't necessarily have to be that much. I mean, we could do lower if we wanted. If we want to do something like 6. And then if we come into our mobile view, yeah, 6 is good on tablet. On mobile, you know, maybe somewhere around 8 or 9 looks good. And then we will check that. We'll go back to our desktop view. So now, if everything was center aligned in our hero image, this text was center aligned, and we wanted our two buttons centered, we'd be good to go. We're ready to roll. But in this particular one, I'm left aligning everything, and so I want these buttons to be left aligned. And so in order to do that, what we do is we come in here to our row settings, we come to our Design tab, Sizing, and then underneath our max width, you'll see we have row alignment, and I'm going to left align it. By default, that's going to push it all the way up against the left side of the screen to be flush with it. And so we do want a little bit of padding here so it lines up with everything. And so what we're going to do then is we'll go back into our spacing toggle. And on desktop, for left, we'll do 10%. I don't want that checked because I don't want the right. There we go. So now we have this spacing here. And when we look on tablet view, it's now lined up, but you'll see that it's not perfectly aligned here. So what we can do is come down here to our row alignment and then change it so that on tablet and phone we just click center. And then now on phone, there we go. We have equal spacing on both sides. Looking good. And then on desktop view, perfect. So now we have our buttons are good to go, and we could even change this. Like if you'll notice this top one, you know, we maybe have a primary button here that we want a little bit more noticeable, a little bit more to stand out a little bit more. We can do that and have this secondary button a little smaller, and then of course we can style them appropriately. So that is how to create. That's one method to create a dual buttons. Here's another one that I like, that I see a lot. People will do a row with a single column. Actually, let's do this. I'll just duplicate this for the sake of ease. We'll get rid of this and we'll set it to one column. And we'll duplicate our button. And then what you could do if you want to do it this way is you could come into your row settings. I gotta love it. If I can get in there. Alright, if you ever get into a situation where it's doing this, there we go, it'll mouse over. Something else you can always do, if you right click and you go to layer, you can just come into the layer panel here to edit it as well. Sometimes it gets a little wonky like that. That's something that is allegedly, I think, being fixed in Divi 5. But anyway, we're in our row. We can come into our column, go into advanced, custom CSS, module elements, and then in our main element we're going to do display flex, and you'll see by default these are in a row because by default display flex inherits a flex direction of row. I like to explicitly write this out, but it's up to you. A lot of people will omit this just because it's the native functionality, but I find it's easier later if I come back, if something's, you know, wrong and I need to troubleshoot something, if this is explicitly written out, you know, I don't have to try to remember what the default setting is. So anyway, they're now side by side, and then we can come in here to our button, advanced, custom CSS, module elements, and we could say, you know, width 300 pixels, and you know, you could explicitly set them this way if you want. I find doing it this way introduces more opportunity for funny stuff to be happening on mobile devices. But if you wanted to style everything up with CSS, you could do it this way as well using Flexbox. I prefer this method, but it's totally up to you. So there's two different ways to make the dual buttons, the side-by-side buttons. Hopefully you found some value in this. If you did, make sure to like and subscribe and share this video with another Divi developer you think would find value in it. And I will see everybody in the next video.